We got our buddy Craig, and there's Rosa. Hey, Craig, I'm being interviewed by USA Today and NPR. And, oh, I already hooked you up with that. I'm sorry. And I got another opportunity for you that I think that would be good for the Last Prisoner Project and you, that I'll talk to you about, okay? And there's Amanda. And who else we got here? Gerard. There, Topeka's here now. Age, Topeka's in the audience.
Hello. It says start my, hi. Let me see. Okay, can you hear me?
Is that you? There we go.
Yes,
Hey.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, good, good. Lovely to see you.
Lovely.
We're letting people in now and they can hear you. And then we're gonna be starting in about a minute, okay?
Fantastic. Hi, Clover, how you doing?
Hi, Topeka. How are you?
Well, I am well.
Amazing, as always.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Me or her?
You too.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's get going. Good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to another installment of The Yard. It's actually 10 a.m. on Friday in Sydney, Australia, which can mean only one thing, of course. It's time for another episode of The Yard. In addition to folks seeing us and participating on our Zoom channel, we're being seen at the same time on Facebook Live, on Twitter, on YouTube, and this event is being recorded live where it'll be available like all our other past episodes on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and then type in Commissary Club, you'll see all of them. And very soon, we will be seen on literally hundreds of thousands of tablets inside of jails and prisons by maybe 1 million of our brothers and sisters who are there doing time. So that'll be happening soon. Oh, we're very excited about that. The Yard, of course, is a production of Commissary Club, which is the first social network for 70 million Americans that have a criminal record. And my name is Richard Bronson. I'm the founder and CEO of Commissary Club, as well as 70 Million Jobs, which is the national employment platform for folks with records. Now, normally I would be joined by my good friends and teammates, NBA legend Seth Sundberg and rapper To the Stars Divine. But tonight we're welcoming a very special person to join me as a co-host on The Yard, the very fabulous Topeka K. Sam. Hello, Topeka. Hello, Topeka. Okay.
Okay. I know I was fine. For some reason I was muted, but I'm here and everything's great. And thank you so much for having me. It seems like you do this when or it's like familiar when we're talking to other sisters. But I don't see Divine or the fabulous Seth in the audience. So what's happening? Do they just like get mad or something? What's going on?
Let's know. I fired them both. No. As I explained to Clover, who we'll be introducing shortly, when there's a woman on, as it was with you, Topeka, I feel like having like, you know, sometimes when the guys get together, there's a little too much testosterone in the room. And, you know, given the exceptional circumstances that women go through in the criminal justice system, you know, I feel like we ought to go out of our way to be a little more sensitive and sort of a little less male, if you will.
Well, I'm sure Clover appreciates that, like me. However, we can hold our own, I would say. And they don't have to disappear just because Like they didn't show up even when you and I talked together. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to reach out to them about that.
I've banished them, and it's not because they didn't want to, but that was my call. For those of you who are not familiar, Topeka herself was a very successful businesswoman as a drug dealer back in the day, and she spent years in prison. But then she received clemency from President Donald Trump and was released. And like so many people who also go through the criminal justice system, rather than sort of turn their back on their brothers and sisters and try to put it in their past, Topeka is now an incredibly powerful and active and effective advocate and leader in criminal justice reform. She focuses on the rights and welfare and the experiences of women and girls who go through the criminal justice system. Topeka founded the Ladies of Hope Ministries, which is opening up offices throughout the United States. And to say that she is a force of nature would not be over the top at all. She's also a very funny person and a great person. So again, Topeka, my friend, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Before we get started, I always love to give like a shameless plug to what we're doing in our business. As I've reported for the last few weeks, you know, we have two businesses under one umbrella. One focuses on employment, the other on community. The employment business, which was completely dead in the water for almost a year and a half during the coronavirus, has come roaring back, and we are turning away business from some of the largest employers in the country. And we are having a spectacular amount of success getting people jobs. So that's both good for them, obviously, and their families and communities, and it's also very good for our business. And hopefully, you know, the Delta variant is not gonna, you know, throw a monkey wrench into all that's going on. We are launching officially our mobile app, which is called Commissary Club. Sort of like Facebook for folks with records, a way for people to connect and gain access to all kinds of resources. We are launching it in partnership with Meek Mill's record label, which is Dream Chasers and Rock Nation. And while we're launching it on the outside, we're also simultaneously launching it on the inside in all these different prisons that I mentioned before. So we're really excited about all that. Let's see, back to the yard. You know, we look upon the criminal justice space that every time someone is released, every act of clemency, like what Topeka, you know, was able to achieve, that's a victory. Certainly, you know, and you take them where you can get them. But by the same time, there are some troubling statistics that I don't think we hear a lot about, and that relates to incarcerated women and girls in this country. In 1980, there were 26,000 women behind bars. 20 some odd years later, that number has increased by more than 700% to a point where there's about 250,000 women and girls who are incarcerated, and they are very disproportionately African-American women. Women are rarely convicted of violent crimes. More than anything, they're there for things that are drug related. But what's really upsetting to me is that 60% of these women have children who are younger than 18. And they are, of course, the primary caregiver for these kids. So many of these kids are going without, you know, their moms at a time when they most need them. So I would love everybody, as I have asked in the past, to go along with me for this crazy little exercise if everybody would please indulge me and first just shut your eyes. Just close your eyes, and then I'm going to ask you, please, just to take a very slow, deep breath and hold it in for a couple of seconds and then slowly let it out. Just to sort of let your mind get a little space in it, you know, and let your imagination have a little room to operate. I think it's pretty easy for most people to imagine prison populations of being comprised of primarily big, tough, loudmouth jerks, you know, men who got in trouble with the law and they ended up in jail or prison. But if we can just take this moment of reflection and just think about the women in your life, you know, historically, you know, when you were young and growing up, and the teacher that was special for you in school, and your mom and your aunt and your sisters. Many of the people who join us in our Zoom room are themselves women who have been to prison. So for them, it's kind of easy for them to imagine prison, you know, among other women. But for most people, I think it's not an immediately obvious sort of thing. So I'm asking you, maybe if it's possible, to just sort of imagine, you know, maybe like your worst nightmare, you know, if you had a daughter and your daughter, you know, in high school fell in with the wrong kids at school and she got involved with drugs with them and she was arrested for drug possession. Or you had a teacher you loved in school and, you know, she was out with her friends one evening and she had a couple of glasses of wine, maybe one too many. She got behind the wheel of her car and she was picked up by the cops for DUI. Maybe you have friends who, you know, their husband left them, they have to take care of their family, money is tight, so maybe, you know, they start selling some pills to sort of supplement their income. Their husband deserted them, they got to do something. But it goes wrong and they get arrested. So you have these like really nice, normal people, they made a mistake, but now they find themselves, you know, rotting away in some awful place. And a place where they have to struggle just to meet their basic hygienic needs as women, you know, things we would take for granted. And they're cut off from their kids and they miss the graduations, they miss the kids' Little League games and the first dates that their kids are going on. And it's an environment where male guards are constantly harassing them and abusing them, if not worse, because they can. So these aren't big, tough, loudmouth jerk guys who had it coming. These aren't violent criminals either, who had to be taken off the street. In my experience, generally, these are women who were often treated pretty miserably by their husbands or their boyfriends, sometimes their fathers, and they are entirely on their own, and all they want to do desperately is take care of their family. And yet here they find themselves in prison. How sad must that be? So please, please now open your eyes, stop imagining, because between our guest host, Topeka Sam, and our wonderful guest, Clover Perez, we're going to hear about what women and girls go through in the criminal justice system from two women who both have experienced it and now have dedicated their lives working on these women's behalf. They both have drawn a line in the sand, and they are saying in no uncertain terms, no, this can't go on, not on my watch. Clover did years of prison time, and yet she got out and she got right to work. She founded a nonprofit organization called A Beautiful Heart Ministries, which aims to provide a four-pronged approach to helping returning girls and women, provide opportunities for economic advancement, help empower women with the tools and strengths necessary to have a successful reentry, be a source of education, and finally, ensure their physical and spiritual well-being. So after these long introductions, let me just say welcome, Clover. Thanks so much for joining us on The Yard.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, I have to address something that I get a kick out of just imagining, but you and Topeka are not only active women who are activists in the criminal justice world, but you actually were sort of like roommates at one point, except we didn't call them roommates back in prison, we called them cellies. You guys ended up sharing a cell together, isn't that correct?
You sure do. We were not in cells. We shared a cube together.
Okay, all right, close enough.
Yeah,
Yeah, we were bunkies. That's what we
You were
called each
bunkies.
other, bunkies. And I was the upper bunkie, so, and Clover had the suite down below.
Oh, I see. So you had the penthouse and she had the garden apartment.
yeah, absolutely.
So let me ask you, number one, Clover, was Topeka a good bunkie? Because there are good ones and there are ones that are not so good, right?
Topeka was a good bunkie. Yes, she was. I tell you this, the moment that Topeka stepped in the cube that I was at, she came in very powerful as she is. And, she always carved out her area, know exactly this is Topeka's area. But she was a wonderful bunkie. I love her style. One of the things that, in the morning when she get up, she got to make sure she got her makeup on and her pink lipstick, her orange lipstick. She was known for that. But yes, overall, she was an excellent bunkie.
It's so funny you talk about style because this always killed me. In prison, my attitude was, I'm here in prison. I have no one to impress. There are no women here that I want to look good for. There are no guys here I want to look good for. And yet there were a lot of people in prison who, I never saw anything like every night they would be pressing their pants and washing their sneakers and ironing their shirts like they were getting married the next day or something. What is it about being dressed up in prison that's so important to people why was it important to you, Topeka?
Well, I remember saying, it was this thought like they could take everything away from me, but they could not take away my lipstick. And I said that because, like, as a woman, prison, well, as a person, like I was always a person that took care of myself. Every day I woke up, every day I did my makeup since I was doing it every day of my life. And so just because I was in that particular situation, I wasn't going to allow it to strip my entire identity, right? So it was just who I was. And for women specifically, everything is so dark, even in a bunkie or a cube, in a cube, there is no real life. Any type of idea of femininity is taken away from you when you go in. And so for me, being able to get up and get myself together, it wasn't about anyone else. It made me feel good. It gave me a sense of self, and it allowed me to feel like it allowed me to keep part of my dignity for whatever that was. It allowed me to continue to walk up and down those halls with my head held high. It allowed me to have joy in my heart, and it allowed me to get all the lipstick from everybody when they were leaving and they wanted to give their lipstick to me. But it was also where I bought contraband. I did buy lipstick, and that was another thing that I did do, my one caveat. But it was important to me to remain who I was. Like to your point, Richard, you talked about, how people were. Like I remember some people would go to a specific shower. Clover knows that. Like they would go to a specific shower every single night. This is my shower. And I'm like, no, this is not my house. I'm gonna switch it up. Like I never wanted to be too comfortable doing the same thing because it wasn't home, right? It was a place that I happened to be for a short period of time in my life, whatever that was. And I didn't want to be comfortable. And I thought if I took away any part of whatever part of my identity was, then I would let that system win.
Interesting. But I mean, Clover, routines are one of the things that get you through the time that you're doing, right?
Yes.
And there's almost, a certain comfort in doing the same thing over and over and over. There's very little uncertainty, and you don't have to make too many decisions for yourself. And I mean, I had certain routines that gave me sort of comfort and maybe a sense of safety. Did you have things that you did every day, Clover?
I did, but I'm not the type of person that likes routine. I get bored easily. So, I try to switch up as much as possible. And that's basically how we survive. We try to do things outside of the norm that, everyone was doing. Because after a while, you become bored, it feels like the walls are closing in on you. So you have to switch up. If you don't switch up, believe me, you're going to lose your mind in that place.
Right.
But there was also a routine, Clover, that you had. You woke
Yeah,
up.
we did.
Prayed
Yeah, but
every morning. No. You prayed every morning, 5 o'clock. I remember there was a time when you were like, look, we got to pray at this time of day. That was part of the routine. It was going to the track. That was part of the routine. It was eating tuna nachos on Friday night. That was part of the routine. But it might not have been using the same shower. That may not have been part of the routine.
Okay, so let me clarify. When I said that we switched up, not that we did not have routine, but from time to time we did switch up, right?
Okay. So let's bring it back to, you got involved with some white collar financial stuff that got you into trouble, Clover, that I read about, which is me as well. I had never been to prison or jail before. And I was very, very frightened, like most people prior to going. Were you petrified about showing up to prison for the first day?
Yes, I was. There was times I had my fight freeze moment, but I had to bring myself in and realize that this is a situation that I had no control over. So I had to make the best of it. And that's what I tried to do, to make the best of it.
Uh-huh. So do you remember, did you self-report?
No. As a matter of fact, I was out on pre-trial and, doing my trial. And the moment I lost trial, I was remanded.
You are. They put you in handcuffs, took you to the holding cell and.
Do you know how hard it is to walk with shackles on when you have
Yes.
stilettos on? Very, very difficult. But yes, yeah, I was immediately handcuffed and I had to turn over all my belongings to my family that was in the courtroom. And I was taken to the Brooklyn Detention Facility, MDC.
Do you still have, or did you have nightmares of that? Do you still think of it? Or do you awoken in the middle of the night as if you were going through it again? Or have you put in the past?
No, thank God. No, I
Okay.
don't. No, I don't.
Do you have that, Topeka? Do you ever, like, holy shit, and then you realize, no? You're cut off. You muted yourself, Topeka.
Yeah, okay, I'm unmuted. Yeah, I was trying not to, mute myself when I'm not talking.
Leave yourself on.
Okay, all right. So in the beginning, when I first came home, I did. And there's been times around April, which is the time that I was actually arrested in Boston, that like I guess my spirit is uneasy. Like, so I'm not really at my best self, if you will. And a lot of that is just around that time of year. I start feeling
really?
a lot of that. Mm-hmm. I actually still do. There's been times where I find myself in the middle of the night staring at the ceiling like I did when I was inside, when I can't go to sleep. And I know even when I think about, like social interaction and, being in a relationship, there were times when I was in a relationship, even trying to like connect with someone was very difficult because when you're in, a bed by yourself for so long and then trying to interact with someone else, I was very closed off. So it was a lot of those different things that has, transpired since coming home, actually, for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your first memory when you made that, when they first brought you into the prison? Do you remember what it smelt like, Clover? Do you remember who was there or how you were treated? I'm sure you remember what they put you through, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I was stripped out. Never been stripped out like that before. So I was very, very embarrassed. Walking into the dorm, it was an open dorm. I was petrified because immediately they were like, fresh meat, fresh meat. And I was like, oh my God, they're gonna rape me inside here. So yes, I was very, very, very scared. The place was, oh my God, it had this awful, awful smell.
Of what?
It was, I don't even know the smell. It was probably what they used to clean, but it wasn't very pleasing to the nose, right? And it was just terrible. It was dark, and just you didn't know that in that facility it's a box inside of a box in Brooklyn. So you really don't know when it's light outside or when it's dark outside. You don't know when it's raining. You don't know when the sun is out. You don't know that because, as I said, it's a box inside of a box.
When I actually came to the prison, that I was sent to, I was hit. It was almost like going onto the subway in New York City in the summer, where, before the air conditioning got better in the subways in the city, where you would like be hit with this wall of steam and humidity and heat. Here, it was a terrible smell. And I walked it that I'd never smelled before. And the guard is like showing me to where my bunk is. And I'm looking and I said, what is that smell? This is the worst smell I've ever smelled in my life. What is this? And one of the guys there said, it's mackerel. And I said, mackerel? What's mackerel? And he looked at me like I'm the biggest idiot. It's a fish. No, I get that. It's a fish, but what does that mean? There's like a whole, a tank of mackerel here, or what is it? And I later learned that canned mackerel is both a great source of protein. So all these bodybuilder guys would eat the canned mackerel, and they would use these cans as the unit of barter, not cash, not cigarettes, but it was cans of mackerel. And you would get a haircut and it would be 2 Mac. Or you'd have a guy who would make your bed for you every week, and that was 3 Mac. And that's what it was all, or the guy would clean your sneakers. And I never even heard of cleaning your sneakers. I never knew you could do that, but he was a genius with cleaning sneakers. And that would be like 1 Mac per cleaning. And I never got over that. Did you have mackerel where you guys were? You did. You remember that smell?
Yes.
I actually loved it. I only found out about mackerel until I got into the federal prison because they didn't have it in the county jail. But I ate it all the time. Clover made a mean mackerel and rice.
Well, I'm a pescatarian, so that's all I could eat. But it also depends on how you clean it. And we didn't have cans. We had the little pouch.
Yeah.
But it also depends on how you clean it. You have to put the lemon on there. You have to season it properly. You have to drain off that oil, and you have to wash it. Yeah, you have to do all those things. Yeah.
So that's one of our favorite topics, talking about food in prison. I was in prison in Florida. So there were lots and lots of Latin guys there. And I used to wonder, like I'd go to, the mess hall for meals or dinner, and I never saw any of these guys there ever. And I'm wondering, like, do they have like a separate cafeteria that they eat at? But I never see the guys from Cuba, or where are they? Or from South America, what do they do for food? And then I learned that every night they would get together and there were all these microwaves and they would cook for each other the most elaborate meals, with wraps and rice and beans and mackerel and whatever the hell they made. And they go, I'm not eating that shit. We're cooking for ourselves. Did you get involved with cooking stuff for yourself?
Yes, because Topeka didn't cook at all. So yes, I was the cook. And I was good at it, right, Topeka?
What was your specialty?
Well, nachos. The nachos was really, really good. I think the only thing I can remember Topeka used to make was the eggs in the microwave with the.
Oh my God! Yes,
yeah,
it
that
was.
was good.
I used to make these little corn. It was the corn. So what is it? Tostitos or whatever you call it.
Tostitos with the
Yeah,
eggs.
and I put a fried egg on it with the refried beans, and I got cheese from the kitchen. I would get onions from the kitchen.
Onions, tomato, all of that. Yeah,
it was delicious. Yeah, I don't even know where I got that. Oh, it was on the back of the little pack. The pack about how to make it, the little corn things. Yeah, they were good. That was my only meal.
Do you think you would find it delicious now, or is it just because you were in prison?
No, they were good. That was good. It was really good, actually.
Yeah, they were good. Yeah. As a matter of fact, if I had the mackerel, I would actually make the mackerel fried rice. It was really good too.
Yeah, you made a good mackerel rice.
Yeah.
And the nachos were good.
Yeah.
Based upon a few of your comments, Clover, it sounds like from day one, Topeka was like quite the diva when she showed up in prison. Is that like a fair characterization?
Very fair. Very fair. Yes, very fair. Topeka had everything at her disposal, everyone, not to say that I didn't have those things. I had those things, but for me, it wasn't necessary. I didn't feel like I had to do it, but probably because that's just, who Topeka is, and also probably because she just came into the prison system, so she probably had not fully transitioned over as yet, but she had to make sure her clothes was always altered. And of course, she had someone that ironed her clothes, altered her clothes, do her hair, style, colored her hair, do her manicure, her pedicure. She had all of those things.
Oh my God. Now, were you ever concerned that someone, or did it happen, where someone in the prison would sort of resent that you were, making believe you were better or putting on airs, or was that ever an issue?
It was not an air because it was who I was. The other part of it was like, it was a way people made money that way too. So it wasn't like people were just doing things because they wanted to get clothes. That was how people earned money. And so for me, it was like, okay, I was helping people. They were helping me, but I was paying for service. And also that, like I would buy extra things in commissary. People would be able to come by and get things. And, at any time if they needed things. And so it wasn't for me, and I mean, Clover can speak to that because she was with me. I don't believe that I had an air of being better than anyone, or that I felt like, no, I just think that I recognize now, not so much then, but I recognize now that I was very privileged, even inside. I recognize now that, I had great family support, great friend support. I had visits all the time. I worked 2 jobs, well, really one. The other job, I had somebody else working for me.
You're privileged.
But I think I mean, I don't know, Clover, you can speak on it or not. I just think I was authentically myself, honestly. I think I show up the same way now that I did then. Anyone who knows me would say that, I think, but she would be better able to tell you that than, me saying about myself.
Okay.
No, I don't think that she thought that she was better than anyone else. Yes, she was very lucky to have a support system, and to help others. For me, I wasn't really concerned about that. The only thing I was concerned about was trying to do everything I could possibly do to get home and just I was in another stage also, still grieving. So it didn't matter to me how I looked. However, as Topeka said, it's a sad situation that there's many women in prison that does not have that support system, and their only source of help is coming from the women that are incarcerated, right? Because if they didn't have someone that would actually allow them to iron their clothes, or even to have a manicure or pedicure, they would not be able to survive. Because making a salary of what, $5.35 a month, that's what I used to make, and you have to now call your child, that's what I think is $3.15.
85 cents.
Yeah,
Okay.
you would not have anything left. So, I understand that as Topeka was looking out for herself, as so many other, that she was also looking out for others as well.
So it was this like ecosystem of a society, and you were able to help in a very organic kind of way. In general, again, and this is not necessarily anybody on the outside's image of prison, but we hear it all the time, and I saw it, that you guys were looking after each other and were in each other's corner. I remember when I first got to prison, and I had read all about, don't accept any favors and don't take anything from someone and don't borrow anything and whatever. And yet when I got there the first night, a couple of guys came over to me and they handed me, flip-flops, shower shoes, because you don't want to take a shower without them on your feet, and a toothbrush and toothpaste and deodorant and a few other things. And I looked at them and I was very reticent about accepting their generosity, because I thought, like, what's the obligation here? What am I, I read about not doing this. And they just looked at me and they said, listen, people did this to us when we first got here, and you'll do it for the next guy who comes in here. And they were just, it was just brotherhood, and it sounds like that went on with you guys too, right?
Yes.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I just had a conversation with a funder yesterday about that. We did take care of each other. Like, that's what it was. If someone was grieving, we prayed with them. If someone, needed something, we would make sure they had it. If someone just needed to talk, we listened. It was, and women were that way anyway, I think. For the most part, we're very maternal, we're very, caring. And I talked about how, you find your kind, is what I was told. Coming into Danbury, when I got there, to your point, it was like sisters came and they gave me stuff. Here's a pair of sneakers, here's a pair of sweatpants, so you're able to go to commissary. And it was just helpful, and it helped you to, feel again as comfortable as you could in a new environment. And so, I think there are times, Clover can talk more about, being behind the fence and doing that type of time. I can't, because I didn't. But, from the county jail time that I was in for a year to through the, federal camp system, if you will, there was always a sisterhood, no matter what. And I think that there's great beauty in that, great strength in that, and great camaraderie in it.
And a chance to get to know closely some of the best people you would ever meet in your life, at least for me. You were talking about grieving just now, Clover, and you and I talked about this before we went on, because, I wanted to make sure this was something that you were okay to talk about, but you suffered a terrible, 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 horrible loss prior to your being incarcerated. Can you share with us what you went through in your family?
Yeah, definitely. So a year before my incarceration, my son, Andre, was killed. He was 23 years old, went to a birthday party. There was a shootout in the building, and as he was leaving, a stray bullet hit him in his neck, and he died.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
and then not too long after you were sent to prison.
Yeah, not too long after, I went to prison. Also had to deal with the death of my maternal grandmother, who actually raised me until the age of 13. So it was difficult. It was difficult losing Andre, difficult losing my grandmother, and losing my freedom as well. You know, walking into an environment where I knew no one and did not know how it was possible that I was going to survive. When, you know, I wanted to die, you know, when my son actually was killed and I was home, I was cutting myself because I was in so much pain. And you know, the mind can play these terrible games on with you, you know, terrible tricks, I should say, on you. Being the fact that my son was killed, they had to do an autopsy, and I felt, my mind was telling me that he felt it. So I wanted to feel exactly everything that he felt. So look, in retrospect, looking back, I say, you know what, thank God that I ended up in prison, because had I not been in prison, I probably would have committed suicide somehow.
Well, you said that when you went away, it struck you that you'll never, ever, ever see him again while you're alive.
While I'm alive, yes. And that was, it was something that was so hard for me to get past, you know, and not having Andre around, not having Andre come to visit me. And, you know, it it was a time that I just felt like I didn't even exist. Like I had actually stepped out of my body and I was just functioning, but I wasn't functioning as Clover. But again, as I said to you earlier, I am grateful that I had women that stepped in, like Topeka, and helped me, because you know, there were nights, and one of the things that Topeka said to me that I didn't even know, she said to me, you know, you used to cry in your sleep, and I did not even know that. And because I was in so much pain. Oh my God, I can't even begin to explain the depth of my pain. But only thing I can say is that I was in an abysmal of pain and just could not function properly.
Well, thank God you had sisters who could give you a hug and could be there, you know.
Yeah, definitely,
You
definitely.
weren't
I
completely
wouldn't have
alone.
made it without them.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, there's just such sadness and loss, you know, that goes on associated with incarceration, not being able to be there for your family. I'm sure you felt guilt and, you know, you weren't available and just all kinds of. Did you ever feel like afraid of showing weakness while you were in prison, or were you comfortable with that?
I am an introvert, and I'm also very introverted with my feelings. I don't show it often because I try to be strong. And one of the things that, you know, you find in prison is that sometimes even the ones that try to help you are the ones that actually will bring up something that is painful to hurt you. So I try to be very selective in who I share my, you know, my pain with, who I tell my personal business with, because I don't ever want someone to actually bring that back up again, especially when I was at a place that I was trying to heal.
Mhm. What would surprise people? What surprised you most, both of you, about prison? What was most unexpected, positively, negatively, whatever? Does anything come to mind?
You want me to go first, Topeka?
Yeah, please. Yeah, it's your show.
Yeah. Yeah. So what surprised me the most when I walked into prison was that, wow, here they have women in prison, but they're really not prepared for women at all. So immediately,
The prison wasn't prepared.
the prison wasn't prepared
In
for
what
women
respect?
at all.
In what
Um,
respect?
And I would say that, immediately the clothes that was given to us were men clothes, right? So that, we had to alter that to actually fit us and make us, look like these are, women clothes. We kind of tailored them a lot. But I also was so surprised, not at the camp necessarily, but at the FCI that I went to. I was surprised when I heard the sentences of some of these ladies. 3 lives, 2 lives. And I'm like, how is it possible for someone to have 3 life sentences when God said we only have 1 life? I could not understand that. I just could not understand that. And just having, being in that situation and having a 10-year sentence and trying to speak to someone that had a life sentence or even double life, what possible right do I have to complain about my sentence? I felt I was so hurt. And for me, that was an eye opener that I needed to be more aware of what was going on in this country, how sheltered I was. And I said this to you earlier, that I was living in this country, but I was not a participant as far as what was going on in the country. I was not versed of all these different laws. I was not aware that someone could actually get, especially women, 10 years or even life in prison. So that was very sobering for me.
Interesting. What about you, Topeka? What surprised you, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, many things. I mean, I definitely would agree with Clover with what she said about the sentences. But what really, I guess, kind of shocked me was that there were women or girls, like 18, to women that were in their 70s. Some who just came in, some, to Clover's point, who had been there decades already. Many who had no crimes of violence. So there was no one else particularly harmed in that way. When you think about sentences, you think about, life when there may have been, direct harm, right? But some of the things that I was hearing, white collar crimes with no victims and people doing decades and then paying restitution while they were still inside. Like, I could not understand that for the life of me. How are you paying a debt and you don't know where the debt is going while serving the time and paying the debt with your life? Like, it just all made no sense. Still doesn't. Then when it came to programming, it was like, all right, so the adult continuing education courses for women at Danbury, for example, was knitting, crocheting, plastic canvas, and beading. And I would say, okay, so how are these courses going to help me have transferable skills that are going to let me come out and try to do something different with my life?
You're going to have a career in beading, obviously.
Right. Where's the career pathway? Where's the opportunity? Where are any of these things? It was like none of it. So like I couldn't understand. And then I remember going in the summertime in Danbury, the sisters was out there down by the volleyball court sunbathing. And I was like, am I at the beach? Like, what is going on? Like, and in my mind, I'm saying to myself, like, this is a waste of time. Like, what and why are people being sent here? So it was like a lot of these shocking moments. Of course, all the things that I've always talked about, like, the rationing out of pads or the type of pads that they gave us, no tampons at all. Just all of those things throughout my journey. The fact that there were women who hadn't seen their mothers or even their children, sometimes in decades. And then understanding like their why, right? Like, parents had passed, parents had their children who were elderly on fixed incomes. many who might have just been in Brooklyn and we were just in Connecticut, which was under an hour drive, but yet they didn't see their family in years. I couldn't understand that. I didn't understand the levels of trauma and violence that women had faced, and hearing them share their experiences, which were very, very different than mine. So, you know, it was all of these things. The fact to see professional women, high levels of education, incarcerated, thinking that, you know, oh, well, I'm sure these people had attorneys. Well, what happened? And how the attorneys railroaded. So it, like, you know, I can go on and on and on, which again is a driver, I believe, as to why we all do the work that we do, is because you get there and then you find like, this is not what they show on TV, who we are and not the stories that are being depicted, and the solutions that they claim that they're giving are non-existent.
Right. Okay, that's a lot of surprise that you had to process.
Yeah.
I like you guys, you know, you both had success prior to your incarceration. I had a lot of material success and I lost it all. And what I had left, I gave away to charity because I felt so guilty and ashamed of myself. So I went to prison literally with nothing. And of course, prison, if at best, teaches you about humility, which I definitely needed a strong dose of, you know. But I found myself shaking my head all day, every day, amazed at the turn that my life took, from you know, private jets and fun and glamour and friends and travel to scrubbing urinals all day. And like, my God, like there was no, it didn't happen slowly. It was like, I woke up one morning and I'm scrubbing 100 urinals. It was surreal. You know, it was Kafkaesque. Did you find yourself shaking your head a lot? Like, my God, look at what happened. How did this happen to my life? Do you relate to that?
Yes, yes, definitely, definitely. How did I possibly end up here? What did I do wrong? Well, I knew what I did wrong, but I still was asking, what did I do wrong to deserve for me to be here? And, you know, the sentence basically that I was given. And, you know, we had in the camp a lot of women that had white collar crime. And then when I look at it and the time that I was given, and only because I went to trial. So I decided that I was going to exercise my constitutional right by going to trial, and I was penalized for that. And then someone that took a plea for the same crime got a year and a day. So, you know, it was for me to figure out, you know, what the hell happened? What happened?
Right, right. Jane, who is a friend who joins us pretty much every week, she writes that opportunities for women in prison are very different than for men in prison, which was where I sort of wanted to go next. Is it harder for a woman is the incarcerated experience for a woman, is it worse? Is it harder than it is for a man? Who has it worse, a man or a woman in prison?
Well, I can't speak of a man experience, but what I will say that as women, we are connectors. We're connected to our children. We're connected to our spouse. You know, we're connected to our parents. So that is very, very difficult because we are, as connectors, we're emotionally led, right? Where men can actually, you know, kind of pull back and, you know, figure out ways that they can deal with these things. We as women don't do that. We're always thinking about our children. We're always thinking about our parents. And that is very, very hard, very, very hard because we're trying to fix things at home while we're incarcerated. And it's very difficult because you cannot live in prison and try to figure things out on the outside for your family. And then you feel like, you know, wow, life is going on and you're not included anymore. So that's very, very difficult.
What do you think, Topeka? Who has it worse?
Well, brothers say women do, guys that I know
I
who've
think
done time, who've come and heard us speak, who, we were doing the symposiums around the country, they would say, oh my God, I didn't know women had it so bad. To Clover's point, about mothers or women being primary caregivers of dependent children, that's another thing. There's a brother, and I'm sure you all know him, James Montanaro, who has Reentry Campus out of Rhode Island. And him and I were in a cohort together for the Unlock Futures 2 years ago, the inaugural cohort, and we were talking, and he said, when men get arrested, they say, where is their lawyer? And when women get arrested, they say, where are their children?
Wow.
And I thought that was such a powerful statement because it's the truth. And when men, when I used to go visit men in prison before I even went to prison, I would be lugging children, sometimes a visit would be ended because there was a line of women and children waiting to come in. But when I was incarcerated and I would get visits, the visiting rooms were normally half empty. And so when you think about the levels of support, women don't have much support. So it definitely, I would say, and I think popular opinion would say that it definitely is that women definitely have it worse. And to Chloe's point earlier, prisons were not designed with women in mind.
Right. Well, when you talk about like feminine hygiene products, and I've heard this from every woman who's done time, which is pretty amazing to me. But it's typically not as violent, for example, among women as it is among men, right? Isn't that fair?
I don't, again, when I was in the county jail, there were many spouts of violence. Now in the camp, it wasn't, the only time you saw people fighting in the camp was when they were in relationships. And so somebody was fighting over, the girlfriend did something or whatever. And that was the only time. But usually you didn't want to lose your camp status, so nobody was really fighting anyway, because nobody wanted to go behind the hill. But when you talked about the feminine hygiene products, it made me think about being even in the county jail in Virginia and women dumpster diving. And I think I talked about this. I'm not sure if I talked about it with you last time. But I remember getting there, and again, the privilege that I was able to buy panties from Commissary. But in this county jail, you had to do what they call dumpster diving. And so you would go into this big, huge bin, and you would basically find a pair of used panties, and women would go in and they would look to see which one had a less soiled or stained crotch. It was disgusting. Wow. To the point that I even had my packs of panties that I bought, I washed them in the steel toilets and would hang them dry. So that way, if I sent them out, of course, I never wanted to put my underwear in the laundry bag that went with everybody else's laundry, because when they came out back in the dumpster, you would lose all of your undergarments. So when you think about that, men, they wear boxers, or they can free ball, or they can do all of these things. Women, we don't have that luxury. And so yet we were treated in that way. And just to think about just how dehumanizing that is, and some of the things, again, that I saw, it was heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking, yeah. One thing that when I get together, or I just hang out with Seth and Divine, because we've all been, down, and it's easy for us to remember some of the funny things, because there were a lot of characters in prison, very funny, nutty type of people, odd personality. We had last week a couple of guys on who were great, and they were one of a kind. I mean, they were personalities, were they very funny? Do you remember laughing in prison? I guess that's my question for you.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And I will share someone's name, and I know that she would not matter. It would not bother her, is Tawana. She was very, very funny. And I think that Topeka can attest to that.
You'll talk to her?
Yes, I haven't talked to Tawana in a while, but Tawana is an incredible, incredible woman. She's actually a writer. She's an author. She's a great, she did my manicures and pedicures inside. And I always tell the story that when I got there, I guess I was looking like money, whatever that was, because she told me a mani and pedi, I believe it was $10. And I overheard her talking to somebody and telling them it was $7. And so I said, why would you charge me $10 and you charging everybody $7? She said, well, you got it. I was like, oh my God. Yeah, so it was funny. But yeah, Tawana is an incredible mother. She's just an incredible woman. You should definitely have her on here. She's super funny.
Well, I would please, let's talk about getting her on. That'd be great.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there was some real characters though, and you're just on top of people for so long, but then there are people who really sort of get on your nerves and you can't avoid them and you can't express how you feel because things could get really out of hand. I had this one guy who, his name was Kid Fresh, who's from Detroit.
Mhm.
And he was, when I first met him, he was the biggest know-it-all about everything. He knew everything about everything. I mean, to the point where no human being has that much knowledge. And yet he thought he knew everything about everything. And he used to take out, he had a bag of Oreos and he would talk about how they make Oreos. Like they would use acid and gold, like crazy things he would say about Oreos. And I go, you don't know what you're talking about. And I said, I got to live with this guy for a couple of years. Either I'm going to kill him or I got to make him my best friend because there's no in between here. And I just decided to make him my best friend. And in fact, we became best friends. And, we used to work out together every day. And at least then I could tell him to shut up when he was just talking. But, it's a lot. You're on top of people for a long time, right?
So true.
So true.
I saw Ann Rice comment in here. She said she was our third bunkie who's here tonight. I saw her.
Oh, really? Wonderful. Hey, Ann.
She was our third bunkie. Not literally, but figuratively, because she was always in the bunk. And I saw somebody say earlier about pizza. Ann made the best pizza.
Yes, the best
Oh,
pizza, yes.
my God. I believe it was like saltine crackers or something. She never gave up the recipe, but it was so good.
Yeah,
It was so good. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, Ann. It's great. It's sort of like a reunion for you guys, huh?
Yeah.
I often talk with Seth. We talk about having a reunion from our actual prison. Like if we could just get everybody together who was there at the same time, it would be sort of interesting on the outside. So Clover and I were talking, about, how we want to make sure that we have a chance to chat about the work you're doing and the work you're doing, Topeka, which I know all about. And, and both of you have a focus on women and girls in the criminal justice system. I said to Clover, I am always struck by the fact that people come out of prison and rather than trying to run away from the experience and never look back and never think about it again, so many of them are brought back and want to, help their brothers and sisters and take what they've learned. It almost like it gives it meaning, or it wasn't a waste of time if it brings you to this level of understanding where you could actually do some good could come out of it. And, I know that's true with me, and I know it's true with both of you. Clover, at what point did you say, something, I want to devote my life to this work when you get out? Did you know that all along, or how did that develop?
No, this was not something, as I said, that I thought that I would do because of the shame. And also, I'm from Jamaica. I'm sure you guys picked up the accent. And my family is, very shameful of the fact, was very shameful of the fact that I went to prison. One of the things that they used to tell their friends is that I went away, I was in London, because they did not want to talk about the fact that I went to prison. So this was not something that I would have chosen to do. However, during the last 2 years of my incarceration, I think that's when the foray of my advocacy work started, when I saw many women were leaving and then they would come back to prison. And I couldn't understand why they were returning when I wanted so much to go home. And just having a conversation with them and finding out that they were returning to prison because they had violated because they did not have a cell phone to be in contact with the halfway house when they would leave, and when they're returning, not having clothing for job interviews. That kind of bothered me, even though I knew that that would not have been my reality when I got home, because I've always had a excellent support system. I would say that very, very spoiled. I'm an only child, get exactly everything that I want. But I felt so badly for these ladies. Because in reality, prison is a place of not of correction, but more so of confusion. And I could not imagine how a system would treat women that way, by sending them back to prison because of something that they cannot control. When you are in prison and you're making $5.32 a month, I think Topeka was making more because she had another job, and a high job, I should say. But when you're making $5.32 a month, and you, out of that $5.32, you have to buy toiletry, you have to call home. You can't save anything if you don't have anyone on the outside that is taking care of you. So going home, and who is going to provide those things for you? A cell phone. Who's going to provide clothing for you? You're not going to go to show up at a job interview in your grace, right? So I decided that, you know what? I am going to allow my trauma to work for me. I'm not going to allow my trauma and these ladies' trauma to go to waste. So I started on Girls Talk, and Girls Talk was a group of women came together, and we spoke about all these different barriers that we would face when we go home, and to see how we can come to a resolution of how we can fix the system when we got home. And after I came home, I just started a Beautiful Heart Ministry, but I was searching for a name because I did not want to use Girls Talk. And I remember I was in the bathroom and I was like, God, I need a name. I need a name. I need a name. And I have this because my best friend sent me this book. It says A Beautiful Heart. And I said, oh my God, this is what I am going to name my ministry, A Beautiful Heart Ministries. And that's how it all started.
So tell us what you do at Beautiful Heart Ministry.
So I provide resources. I make sure that the ladies that's coming home from prison, that we have care packages for them. And the care packages is all packed, nice, beautiful boxes, pink boxes. And it's just packed with all the essential things that they would need. I like nice things, so I make sure that I give them nice things. One of the things I will say is when I first got home, I couldn't wait to go to Walgreens or Walgreens and CVS, because there were so many products that I used to use and I missed them so much. And I remember walking into Walgreens and I started crying. I started crying when I saw Secret that I used to use. It was almost like I'm now meeting friends that I had lost along the way, and then reintroducing myself to new friends, which are these new products. And the smell, oh my God, they smell so amazing. I said, you know what? This is how I feel. I want to make sure that these ladies feel those things when they get home as well. So I provide also not only toiletry, I provide clothing. I also provide cell phones for them. And we do a lot of programming empowerment program. Right now we're having a program, She Writes Her Trauma, because I'm very, very big in on healing. And these will help these ladies to basically to heal from all that they have been through.
Now, you're based on Long Island in New York. Is that where?
No, my organization, I live in Long Island. Long Island, my organization is in Queens.
In Queens. So
Yes.
that's primarily where the women who you're working with are coming from, right?
Not necessarily, because we have so many women from all over that reach out to us, and I never want to turn anyone away. So if anyone called me from another state and if I can help them, I will help them as well. So I don't limit myself to the 5 boroughs.
It's amazing stuff. We have links to your organization as well as about you up in the chat area. So by all means, reach out to Clover. And Topeka similarly works with women and girls who are coming out of the criminal justice system. And her organization is growing dramatically. Every time I talk to her, she's in a different city where someone else wants to support her to open up a branch, I guess. So tell us what you're doing now. Tell us where you're doing it, Topeka.
Yeah, what am I doing now? So now we have 7 programs. We started with Hope House as the first program. We have 7. So we do our work in 2 pillars. One is direct service and sustainability. The other one is advocacy and engagement. We understand that you cannot advocate for yourself, for anyone else, if you don't have your basic human rights met, which are safe housing, food, healthy food, and equitable opportunity through employment, entrepreneurship, training, and development. So we have Hope House in New York and New Orleans, and we're scaling that to 6 cities and Trinidad this year. We all in the cities, we're scaling to a Newark, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Miami, Florida, Chicago, Illinois, Denver, Colorado, and then Trinidad. So 7, excuse me. We have our Angel Food Project, which is a partnership with Instacart and other supermarkets, Whole Food, Fairway, Wegmans, Costco. We give out bags of donations to families impacted by incarceration, COVID, and other systems of violence against women, 7 days a week. This last month, we gave out just food to 300 families in the New York City area last month alone. Our Pathways for Equity program is partnering with you, Richard, but other companies and also corporate partners so that we're giving personal and professional training and development to people to move into corporate decision-making roles. And then we have our policy and advocacy work, our Faces of Women in Prison program, which is our Speakers Bureau. We've trained 50 women to date, and now going into our next cohort of veterans who are impacted by incarceration. So really excited about that because of the intersections there. We also just received our first federal funding to give support to veteran women who are impacted by incarceration with housing in New York. We also have our EPIC ambassadors work is training women how to draft and write legislation, partner them with local elected officials, and then get them registered as lobbyists in their states. And then our reproductive justice program, we launched with the doula initiative, where we are currently training 50 women on being birth doulas, so that we can then get them into being death doulas, patient navigators with a partnership with Morehouse School of Medicine, and community health workers with United Healthcare. And we just now in Miami, which is where I am presently, just got under contract to do 3 development projects totaling 71 units, starting with 12 affordable housing units for women who are 55 and older, and then 8 for workforce for reentering back from Miami or from Florida Department of Corrections, but back into South Miami. And then we'll be finished with those projects in summer of 23. So it's completely ground up building. So it's really, really excited about that. You know, it's so much happening and building out here in Miami and so many gaps. And we chose those specific cities because of the lack of resources for women and girls, the high levels of incarceration, the high levels of recidivism, and the high levels of violence. And so when we look at those cities specifically, and we looked at all of the cities, we decided we need to go where there were gaps and see how we can help to support, our community. So exciting stuff. Just really proud of our team. I'm no longer the Lady of Hope. We have 21 employees now, and expanding every other week. I feel like I'm meeting a new person. So, God has been faithful and good, and I just continue to do what I feel is needed and where I see there are gaps. And every time something comes my way, I look at it as a new opportunity. So, and I make it work. So that's just that.
I feel like such a loser listening to everything you're doing. I thought I was doing okay. People tell me like, don't move so fast and don't pick your spots and whatever, but you don't buy that. You're just.
No, I did buy it, and that's why I moved so slow. And I did buy, but I call it rhetoric because, for those of us who've been in prison, what we know is there is a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
And what we know are, for women, 800% increase of women going into prison. We also know as fast as there's great legislation happening and passing, decarcerating, ending probation and parole, doing all of these things, that people need housing, they need food, they need jobs, they need trauma support, they need every single thing that we do. And so if we don't move faster than they are moving, then people are going to come home and go back in prison, get back in substance misuse, get back into unhealthy relationships, and go back into things that are going to be harmful. So I know when I got to Miami, and I told you this, Richard, I met with somebody. I'm like, yeah, I'm looking at a single family home like the ones we have in New York and New Orleans. And they're like, you're thinking too small. And I was like, I found my kind. This is where I need to be. So I think I'm going to relocate down here. I'm trying to get my mother on board.
Well, you know what? I would love if you did.
Yeah, I think I am. I feel good here.
And we could own this town. I'm telling you.
I believe that. No, that's a true statement. It really is.
And I think we could get Clover to expand out of Queens a little bit.
Yeah.
We could do some major damage. Let me just take a few comments that some of our wonderful friends who have been listening and watching. One of our first guests is a guy named Craig Cecil, and Craig is a wonderful guy. He was serving, get this, a life sentence for marijuana. He had a business providing, I guess, like tractor trailers, and one of his clients was a big marijuana distributor, I guess, and he got caught up in that and ended up with a life sentence for marijuana. And as we all know, about half the states right now have decriminalized marijuana and in fact made it like a glamorous business. It's like walking into Neiman Marcus store. And yet this guy, if it weren't for the pardon that he would have received, he would be 80 years old in prison for pot. He's involved with an organization that's a great one, the Last Prisoner Project, that is devoted to getting every person who's currently incarcerated for marijuana out of prison immediately. And, you couldn't have a better advocate than Craig. So if you know people who are going through that, Craig put his contact info up there, and definitely get in touch with him. Angie, our friend, she herself went through the criminal justice system, and she always is right on point with her comments. And she said, you two are amazing. And my guess is she wasn't referring to me and my double chin. I think she was talking about you two ladies. But thank you for avoiding me in that. You could have said you three are amazing, Angie. Would that have killed you? But you two are amazing, and Angie is 100% right. Nina, who I guess is a new friend, she talks about her wife was in the juvenile system, and she talks about Pennsylvania, New Mexico, where help is desperately needed. And she offers to have her, I guess her daughter come on the yard, and we would love to please talk to her, Nina. So if you get in touch with Adrian at commissary.club, and you guys can talk about that and introduce us to Nina, we'd love to meet her. Jane, who's a dear friend of ours, please give Topeka my name, okay? And I'm giving it to you. She wants to offer support her with her workers' comp if it is helpful for her and our organization. Not exactly sure what that means, but I'm sure it's something of value if Jane is offering it. So Jane, reach out to Topeka. You have her, contact info. Let's see, Topeka, Craig mentions that you and he and you were on the same clemency list.
Mhm.
So I guess that's a good list to be on. And it's like the VIP list. And what else? Well, everybody, I knew it was great to have you both on together. And Clover, we've never spoken before, but you're amazing, as your press suggested you would be.
Thank you.
Your wisdom and your soul and your heart and your passion, you wear it on your sleeve, and you're taking a bad experience and making it important and valid and impactful for others. So surely that's got to be worth, a whole heck of a lot when it comes time to meet your maker,
Thank
what you have done. And of course, Topeka, as I said earlier, you are a force of nature, and you're touching lots of people wherever you turn. So it's really an honor to be here with you guys. In my opinion, employment is the silver bullet. That's where it starts. People who have jobs almost never, ever, ever recidivate. And the opposite is true. Folks without jobs almost always get in trouble again. 75% of people will be rearrested after they've been originally released. And they don't get just arrested once, they get arrested 4 or 5 times on average. And they're almost always unemployed at time of rearrest. So having a job, aside from it paying the bills and putting food on the table for one's family, the self-esteem, there are just so many positive things that come out of that. And as somebody mentioned in the chat room, we've got to look after each other. So if you have the opportunity, always look to hire somebody with a record. I am telling you, because this is what we do every day, there is such quality and such talent out there, and such passion and intelligence and integrity and hard work, and to tap into it, helps any organization. And again, this is all we do every day, and it's true. And I've seen it firsthand, but we've got to look after each other. A lot's going on. A lot of it is thanks to people like Clover and Topeka, but there's a lot more that needs to be done, and we all got to do our part, And the fact that you're here every week, all of our friends, shows that you still feel very connected to all of this. So I'm really humbled beyond words to have the opportunity to connect with all of you. And I thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to say anything in closing, Topeka?
Well, one, thank you so much for inviting me to share as co-host, and thank you, Clover, for sharing your purpose and, you know, your brilliant mind and your brilliant self. So we are grateful. I am grateful and excited to see you and see your ministry continue to grow and be a blessing to many, many, many more sisters. And to Richard's point, outside of Queens, not just Queens, but outside of Queens.
Queens is good, but
Thank you, Topeka.
outside as well.
Thank you.
Hope you want to share any last thoughts?
Yes, thank you. So first, yeah, thank you so much for open up space for me to be here and on this platform. I truly, truly appreciate it, and I'm in awe of all that you are doing. And Topeka, I will say this, that out of pain comes purpose, and God has chosen you to be the forerunner for so many others. You have opened up space for women and girls coming out of prison that we normally would not be invited in because of our convictions. So I thank you for that. There's so many women, including myself, that looks up to you, and so truly, truly proud of you. I don't get the opportunity to say that to you often, but I'm saying it now that I am truly proud of you. And I hope that one day I will be able to do as much as you are doing for these ladies, because it's so well needed. So thank you for tonight.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It means a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, beautifully put. Thank you, everybody, for joining us again out on the yard. It's always such a pleasure to see the familiar faces and then the new faces. Please tell your friends to join us on the yard. Please go and take a look, if you haven't already, at Commissary Club. Download it for your Android or your iOS phone. Give it a high rating and say wonderful things about it. Or else, I'm coming after you, or Craig is going to come after you, or Clover is going to, somebody's coming after you, that's for sure. But please do check it out, and make sure you join us again next Thursday, where I'm not exactly sure who our guest is, but I know it's somebody who's going to be amazing. And we love seeing you. Everybody stay safe, most importantly. And maybe it's not my place to say it, but get vaccinated. Please get vaccinated so that we don't lose any of our audience. Okay, we need you to be healthy to keep showing up. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.